Sure. Just setting it up. So once I set this up, then I will give the host right to. Sure. Good to go.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not able to share my screen. Mukesh? Okay,
Now
I'm
it
the
should.
host. Yes. Okay, I'm good. Thank you. So, thanks everyone for joining this meeting. Very good afternoon to the members who have joined this call over short notice, and to kickstart the first INDUS Security SIG meeting for 2021. And my name is Karthikeyan Vishwanathan. So I'm leading the planning and execution of the security sessions for INDUS. And with me, I have Bipin, who will be working along with me on these sessions management as well. So as part of this session, we have a very unique topic which is covered. The session is on self-sovereign identity. And we have one of our colleague, Jinesh Krishnan, from the SAP Innovation Center in Waldorf, with us to take this forward. And with no further delay, I would just ask Jinesh to give a quick introduction um, on himself, and then subsequently on the session topic as well. Over to you, Jinesh.
Thank you, Karthik, and especially thanks for giving this opportunity. Like you said, it may be done in a short time, but we both with one of my colleague, we consider this as a good opportunity to reach out to a larger group of security colleagues whose work in and out of security topic, and that's why we really wanted to get this opportunity and wanted to talk about certain SSI, like Karthik mentioned over here. So first of all, I will tell my name is Jinesh Krishnan. I work as an innovation adoption architect in Innovation Center Network, SAP. And also along with me, Alex Schaefer, he is a lead in the identity related topic in Innovation Center Network. He will introduce himself. Because Alex was in a completely different time zone, he cannot come over here and then do this live session. We have a pre-recorded session of him, which we made exclusively for this security INDUS group. So that I will play. But before that, just to introduce myself, like I said, I'm Jinesh, and I primarily work in solutioning of blockchain related topic with customers and also with internal product teams, which in SAP, which comes up with material traceability and similar topic, which has blockchain inside it. And Alex will introduce himself in the topic. So we both work in Innovation Center Network, is a one department inside SAP, where our primary idea is to future-proof SAP. So we come up with this latest new technologies and look into it, and then validate it, contextualize it for SAP. That's what we primarily do. And since we have that as our primary intent, what we look forward in this meeting also to reach out to you, convey this our exploration and our opinion on this topic, and then gather as much, let's say, feedback, suggestions, and contextualization of this particular technology on your area so that we can validate it further. So that's what we primarily would wanted to do. Now, before, so the format of this will be, in a way, we will now play the recording of Alex, and then I will stay back, and then we can, if there is any questions and clarification needed, we will go through it together. So that's what we are planning now. So I will start the recording. If, yeah, I am a host, I will just start the recording.
So when you, Jinesh, when you select the share screen option, you will find that there is a audio option also, share audio, desktop audio.
Yeah.
So make sure that you select that so that we can also hear the audio portion of the session.
I'm just looking for the share option.
Should be at the bottom.
Yeah, you may have to.
Yes.
You can see?
Yeah, we can see. Yeah, so just play it first. Let's see if the audio comes through.
Yeah, let me know.
The demo, which is they go to the bank and actually
go full volume, please.
I'm Alex.
Increase volume to the full, please.
Yeah.
Sander Schaefer. I'm a principal engineer at
Is it okay?
Yes, it's good.
Thanks. Yes.
So I'm going to play out this one. Sure.
Yeah.
SAP within the Innovation Center network based out of Palo Alto, California. And today I'd like to share a little bit about decentralized identity, also called self-sovereign identity, and what we at SAP and at the Innovation Center network have been working on with this particular technology, and where we see there is immense business value with self-sovereign identity. So to start off, I'd like to just quickly talk about how we work at the Innovation Center and how we look at new technologies. So our main mission here is that we want to future-proof SAP, so to speak. So we look at emerging technologies and then evaluate them based on where we think they fit into a time horizon. So that could be 1 year in the future, 3 years in the future, or up to 10 years into the future. And based on this evaluation, usually we start this evaluation by writing a paper, and that paper being reviewed by different stakeholders and experts. And then based on this evaluation, we decide whether we want to build a prototype, mostly with a customer and with a partner together. And then once we're completing that stage, we're really moving towards the last phase, and that is validating that there is actual business value and coming up with a business model, and then potentially driving this technology towards productization. And that's exactly what we have done with this topic that I want to talk to you about today, self-sovereign identity, or also called decentralized identity. So what is identity, or what is digital identity? To start off, I just want to talk about, to create a baseline of what currently within the internet identity is regarded as. So you have different patterns that you usually are confronted with. And the most simple one and the most traditional one is centralized identity. So when you think of your identity as just simply creating an account with a service that stores some of your personal data, you would have a LinkedIn account, a Twitter account, Google account, and all of these are separate accounts with a separate email address, a separate username, password, and each of these providers stores some part of personal information. Now, a step further from this is so-called federated identity, and among this umbrella fall all these social logins. So if you can imagine login with Google or login with Facebook, you don't have to create a new username password pair or a new account with this provider, but instead you can just use your existing Google account and existing Facebook account and simply click a button and be logged in without having to, again, generate a new password and remember that. That is, of course, a huge advantage in terms of the user experience for the user because it's just much more seamless. But on the flip side, there is still the problem that all this data resides within one corporation in a centralized database, which is not ideal in terms of security. And also the user doesn't have direct control over their data. So this is what self-sovereign identity and decentralized identity aim to solve, while preserving the nice user experience that a federated login provides. Now the data, all the personal data, resides directly with the user in a personal wallet, for instance, on their cell phone. And what this looks like is you have basically 3 roles within this network, and those are, for one, the issuers that issue credentials to the user. And those are also called verifiable credentials because they're cryptographically verifiable. And an issuer could be, for instance, a university issuing a digital verifiable master certificate as a credential to the holder. And then this holder can present these credentials to a verifier. And that verifier could, for instance, be an employer that they apply for, and they have to present a master certificate among a list of other credentials. And those can then, in a so-called proof request, be cryptographically verified. And all of this is, underlying all of this is a distributed ledger. And I'll come a little bit later to why this is important and why this is interesting. But the key here to remember is that all these honeypots of data that you usually have with a traditional way to manage identity are gone when using self-sovereign identity. And there are many examples of data breaches. For instance, Equifax had one data breach where a lot of the social security numbers were leaked. And unfortunately, within the US, an SSN is almost a crucial part of an identity, and it's just a few digits that you have to know from someone in order to almost be able to impersonate them. So that's very bad if you have all these honeypots of data. And those are being solved by self-sovereign identity because the user has actually ability on a much more fine granular level also how they want to disclose their data. They don't need to disclose all of their data if, let's say, only a check of an age check needs to be done, whether they are above 21. So then really the minimal amount of information that they're in fact above 21 is transmitted in a proof request, and no other information, not even their actual age or their actual birthday. So this then goes into a lot of areas like also GDPR and CCPA, which this is very interesting for. Now, when we started looking at this technology, we needed to find at SAP a first angle of how to approach this from a use case perspective and where basically to start building a first prototype. And what we looked at here are know your customer processes. So in particular, what we looked at is a job application. So if there is an applicant who wants to apply for a job at SAP, of course, like with any other company, they have to complete a background check. And this background check is done by a third party that most companies contract with, which checks name, address, employment history, university credentials, and a few other things. And then this whole process can take several weeks and is quite expensive, actually, depending on where the applicant comes from. If it's from outside the US, for instance, it can be up to $250 per applicant. And it's a very paper-based process. And also the third-party contractor, again, has sub-vendors which they utilize. So there are many parties involved, and the potential for error is quite high. If you now look at the same process using a self-sovereign identity, pretty much in the final vision, the third party that does the background check, the KYC check, is gone, because now when the applicant goes to the job portal, they could simply scan a QR code with their personal wallet that they have on their phone, and then digitally transmit all of their credentials to SAP or the company they're applying for. And then within seconds, this background check could be digitally verified, costing probably less than $1, and there's no more paper involved, no more third parties involved, and it's all cryptographically verifiable. So this, I think, demonstrates really nicely of the potential that this technology has to disrupt existing processes such as KYC checks or in general onboarding processes. And of course, there are challenges, and the main challenges here are that this is based on the assumption that there are many different issuers and providers and verifiers that accept credentials. So the applicant would need a university credential in their wallet. They would need a proof of employment, credentials of their past employers potentially. They would need government issued ID in their wallet as a credential. So there is the assumption that you need to bootstrap a network effect to have all these different credential types and issuers and verifiers accepting them. So that's really the crux of it. But now what we then went ahead and did in terms of our very first prototype building on self-sovereign identity is exactly what I just described to you, the use case of a job applicant. And we thought here, we actually partnered with a customer, a bank, and a wallet provider to build this. The idea here is that we want to issue a digital proof of employment that is directly coming from our SAP SuccessFactors system. So in order to do this, we needed to figure out a few things. First of all, how difficult would it technically be to integrate something like this into a larger system like SAP SuccessFactors and then actually issue a digital verifiable proof of employment? And second, we wanted to find out, well, how would this look like from a user experience? So I would like to show you now, and you can also view this online. I have a link to this at the end of this presentation. So what this process looks like. And this demo illustrates 3 steps. On the first step, you have a job applicant going to the website, the SAP job portal, applying for a position using their wallet. And then we make a time jump and assume now they work for SAP and they generate their digital proof of employment to their phone. And then we make another jump, which goes to the third part of the demo, which is they go to the bank and actually want to apply for a loan for which they need this proof of employment. So I'm going to play this demo video here. And it starts out by the applicant going to the portal, the job portal, and they just, for this, scan the QR code to create an initial connection and transmit their credentials. And within seconds, they apply for a job, the KYC check done in the background. Now, the second part is now, let's say, Jamie here, she works for SAP and she can simply go in her SuccessFactors, issue a proof of employment. She gets a request on her phone and can instantly accept this as a credential in her wallet. Now, once she has this, and of course, a few other credentials, she can go to the bank. And instead of uploading all paper-based scans, she can again scan a QR code. A credential request comes for proof of employment and a few other credentials. She reviews it, can say, oh, attributes. And then within a few seconds, the bank can digitally do the background check and approve her, or in this case, of course, approve her for the loan. And finally, the bank can then in turn, after successful loan approval, issue another credential to Jamie that she now has a loan with this particular bank, which is good for credit history and credit report and credit score and so on. So this is a very interesting use case, and the bank we partnered here with is ATB Financial. which are also very active in the space of decentralized identity. So jumping back to the presentation here, I want to talk about another initiative that we are looking at SAP within the scope of decentralized identity, and that is the Velocity Network Foundation. Now, I talked about how there is this challenge of needing different types of credentials in order to enable use cases such as know your customer. You need university credentials, so universities, you need governments to participate, you need different industries to accept and generate these credentials. And that's a tricky thing to do. And one way to achieve this is by creating consortia, and within these consortia having all these different players in the network and then generating a network effect. And Velocity is exactly that. It's a consortia. SAP is one of the founding members that focuses on building out a network for self-sovereign identity and verifiable credentials. And the key here, what Velocity really focuses on, is to build a token economy, a business model around these credentials. So what you then will have in the future is a direct way of which exchange of credentials, an issuance of credentials, and a verification of credentials will create a flow of value through this token. So you could pay for a verification, and then the person who issued, or the entity who issued these credentials, would get paid for this verification. And there are a few interesting scenarios that you could think of when having this token. So it's basically a known blockchain network that Velocity is creating. And we are actively involved from SAP as one of the founding members. And it builds on top of all open standards that have been currently developed by the self-sovereign identity community. So a consortium is one approach to achieve this adoption and this network effect. On the other hand, of course, you can look at different other ways to achieve adoption, and other ways are certain ecosystems that are already there, and you have a lot of them in Canada. There's Alberta Credentials. And through these ecosystems, there's also the effort to generate adoption. They are not consortia, but these are, for instance, built on open blockchain networks, which is just as valid. At this point in time, it's hard to say what really will be the way that succeeds. So that's why it's important we're really approaching this from different angles. And one more, a little bit more technical aspect I want to talk about self-sovereign identity here is the distinction between human trust and technical trust. So there is a certain degree of trust that you can achieve just by applying cryptography and other technical algorithms. And you see this distinction in this architecture diagram here, up until the green part at the top. The green part at the top, it's the human trust, and the bottom part is the technical trust. So what you can do with technical trust is, of course, you can assure that the communication between the wallets and the phones is secure. You can assure that the so-called distributed identifiers, which identify each individual, are secure. But then you reach a level until up, basically, from which point on you need human trust. And that is when you want to tie this identifier to an actual real entity, such as a corporation, or it could be an object, or of course a person. And that's only possible through human trust once you make this leap into the real world. So how this is achieved here with self-sovereign identity is through a network of credentials. So basically, I would have in my own wallet several credentials that establish me as Alexander Schaefer and as established that it's really truly me because I have, for instance, university credentials, government issued credentials, and so on. And then someone who verifies this can follow back this graph to the government and check their credentials that it's actually government issued and not, for instance, by someone claiming to be this issuer. And opposing to this, how this would work, for instance, currently in the internet, is you have at the top a root that provides the trust, and that's where you, for instance, go to your bank website, you see in Chrome the certificate, this green check mark. So that's provided by a certificate authority. So you basically have a root at the top that provides all this trust, which is the CA, the certificate authority, and then based on this, all the other trust is generated. That's not the case here anymore because you really have this open network. And that's a key distinction between a public key infrastructure and what self-sovereign identity is. Now, if we maybe look a little bit more, and I don't want to go too deep into the technical parts here, but why the blockchain layer is interesting for self-sovereign identity is because there is a need to have a unified API that everyone can access. And that's what the blockchain provides. If the blockchain wasn't there, it would still, in theory, work the system. However, each participant in the network would have to run their own server, their own service, adhering to a standardized API and really adhering to it, because if they deviate from it, there won't be any interoperability anymore. So it will be very complicated and very cumbersome. And the blockchain layer here is this global layer that will be always available to everyone, to all the participants. So that's one important factor. But of course, the second important factor that's often talked about with blockchain is that it has this immutability characteristic. So whatever is written to the blockchain, you can be very certain that it has not been tampered with. And that's why here the blockchain is used for registering, for instance, credentials that have been revoked. You could imagine a driver's license being revoked or suspended, and also as a lookup for public identifiers, like sort of as an address book. And that's why the distributed ledger or blockchain technology is very important. Now, I already talked about some of the challenges, the main challenge really being the network effect that needs to happen, and this critical mass of issuance and acceptance of credentials of this technology needs to happen in order for these use cases to become really implementable, because otherwise they just won't be possible. If you imagine you only have a proof of employment credential in your wallet, well, that's not of much use. There needs to be all these other different types of credentials. But the good thing is that this adoption is already happening, and it's happening very rapidly. You can see all these various ecosystems that have been created, and different consortia such as Velocity that are created. So it's hard to judge and estimate when this really will become widely adopted, but it's happening very quickly. As for the technical challenges, those are not all resolved, but many of them are already at a state where there are final standards, such as the W3C standards for DIDs and verifiable credentials. So there's actually a really very active community that is creating these standards and developing this. Now, as for SAP, a large company, a challenge is to figure out where is value that SAP can provide for technology or with a technology like SSI. And what we think here is that things like integration into our HCM system, like I have shown you in this demo video in the prototype with KYC, or into ERP system, to really change larger business processes or also thinking about trading partner directories that leverage this technology. That is really where I think SAP can provide immense value and help customers to improve their business processes significantly. So this is pretty much where I'd like to stop. You can find a lot of information on the internet regarding this if you really want to dive into the more technical level. And here are a couple of links. There's also a blog that I wrote on our work that we have done so far with SelfSovereign Identity, which you can have a look at. But yeah, if there's any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to just have a conversation about this and also talk about potential opportunities of co-innovation together. So thank you very much, and I'll hand it over to Jinesh.
Yeah, so can you hear me? Karthik?
Yes, Jinesh.
Yeah, so that was our recordings, and I'm thank you to Alex, because it's been late into his night, and for me also to get this recording done for this particular user group. So like Alex concluded over there, what we would like is, of course, to answer whatever questions or concerns over here. Other than that, also feel free to reach out to Alex or me. If this topic seems to be inspiring to you, and any of you can see kind of applicability, so that to the current some context or use case which you have, and then we, if needed, we can, like mentioned in the by Alex, explore this together and further. So that's where I would want to close. And yeah, questions.
So if there are any questions, maybe we can unmute and then ask, or we can put that over chat as well.
Maybe before questions start coming up, just to give an addition. So if you have seen the entire option, this also, like Alex mentioned about the federated way, which, like, the Google authorization and all, which you can use, and the same username password you can use to enter into the other place. But over here, there is one aspect that central authority, or whoever controls that, always knows me as a user, where and all got authenticated myself. And at current present situation, this is actually a valuable information. I may not, or me as a user or a subject may not wanted to give out that information to that central authority. So when we think through SSI, me as a user or a subject who authenticate myself, or allows my credential to be verified by someone else, is known only to me and the person who's verifying it. And that's a real dynamics or angle into it, which is very useful for a user to preserve privacy, or to preserve his identity or her identity being exposed. Yeah, just to add up that over there. Karthik, I guess you are muted.
Yeah, thank you, Jinesh. So as we have requested, if there are any questions, maybe we can have it over chat, or else we are reachable as well. And then if we need to get them clarified, so that could also be handled accordingly.
I have a question,
Sure.
Mukesh here. So I know that SAP as an organization, we also have these identity management solutions that we run for single sign-on and all of that.
Yes.
Is there any thought right now to move them to blockchain-based, or, as you said, self-service based identification as well?
So what happened, Mukesh, over here, we started from Innovation Center Network, our primary idea is to pivot this kind of technical advanced topics from paper to actually how can we contextualize for SAP. So eventually, these are the teams where we would wanted to get our validated output presented to, and then those teams or those topic owners will be validating it and then applying to it. So there is like any innovation topics or like any pivoting or topics, our idea is to contextualize, validate, gather feedback, and present, and then it's up to the product management team how to include it in there, like you mentioned, maybe IDP or maybe something else. So it's up to them to decide. So we will not be able to conclusively mention that yeah, it will be a part of IDP or yeah, it will be a part of this. So
okay, so
that's why just one more thing. Sorry, that's why for us this user group sessions or external participants like whoever is coming over here and whoever will see this video later on, an opinion from them and then a feedback from them is very crucial and valuable for us. Yes.
Thanks. So a follow-up question is, I know that this has been a topic for some time now. I also know that there is a big movement right now in the world where people are talking about, taking control of your own data and monetizing the data instead of, platforms selling off your personal data to the highest bidder. As a user, we don't end up having anything or any control over that. So given that background, how far have we come in terms of adoption, not just within SAP, I mean, globally, in terms of these kinds of self-sovereign identities?
Okay, so that's a really nice question. Again, to relate it back to like the adoption is very much related to this network effect, which Alex was bringing up here and there again. So primarily, this will get adopted more when Mukesh, you start accepting as a company or as an organization that when I ask you to verify something, you will accept this DID or SSI based solutions. Once that's done, and then it can, because any solution can increase its usability or adopt more when more people start using. So for this to work, first Mukesh has to start, Jinesh, and then Karthik as a verifier has to verify and trust in a sense. Mukesh is the issuing person and I am the person who's been a holder saying that, okay, I got certified by Mukesh Institute or something. And then a human trust of Karthik trusting Mukesh's entire education system. And that been augmented by this cryptographic verification. So there is no reason for Karthik to call Mukesh or Karthik to make sure Jinesh is Jinesh, because it's all available over there. So again, coming back, it depends on the network effect. It is far improved. You can consider the amount of standardization group W3C, internet, security over IP, or other standardization organization, the work done by them just gives us an idea of like how much it has improved.
So I think what I was trying to get at is, are there any known brands that are already starting to use it in terms of adoption? Is what I was trying to drive at. But I understand your point in terms of, the more people start accepting, the more acceptable it becomes, just like any other technology, for a fax or internet or email for that matter. The more number of people you can reach out to and more number of people who can reach you, the more popular the medium gets. So, but are there any brands?
Companies like Velocity Network and etc. And even the POC or the demo which is done is with ATB Financial. So they are, I guess, these are the brands which you are looking into it. So whether they have used it in productive landscape is something which not yet there.
Because I think is this also related to what happened recently, which is blockchain-enabled digital artwork being auctioned off for millions of dollars? Is it also based on the same technology, right? If I understand correctly.
That is called NFT, non-fungible tokens. That's a separate topic as such.
Okay.
This uses underlying distributed ledger, which is, like you said, blockchain. Can be any, matter of fact, can be any of such blockchain ledger. NFTs is something which is a little bit different from this identity aspects.
Thanks. Anyone else? Jesu, Sumit, Nilesh, Murli, you have any questions for Jinesh based on what you just heard?
Just to before these links, I will also share it with you. I'm not sure how you will be.
You can put it on the chat right now, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So I will just get that documents and then put it over there.
So let's just wait for a minute or so to see if anyone has any question that someone wants to ask. And also, even if there are no questions on this particular topic, if you think there are topics that you want us to talk about, you can put them on the chat as well, so that we can plan for sessions around those topics as well. Because this is going to be a monthly session. The reason why you had to register again was because the Zoom link has changed. We were earlier using SAP's Zoom account. Now we are using INDUS has bought their own Zoom account, so the Zoom link has changed. That's why you'll have to register again. Apologies for that. But any questions for Jinesh, Karthi, or Vipin? Jinesh, you can also share the links and the slide that was used by Alex, so that we can send it out to all the people who had registered for this session. Okay, guys, if there are no further questions, I would like to hand it over back to Karthik to close it out.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we would like to give a quick update on the patch day notes which have been released. So for that, I would request Bipin to give a quick update on that aspect as well. Bipin, over to you.
Thank you, Karthik. I'm audible, right?
Yes, you are.
Okay, Mukesh, I'm not able to share my screen.
Yeah, 1 second. I will make you presenter. Let me check. Mukesh, I think you have to, because I'm not able to do.
No, Jinesh is the host now. So Jinesh.
Okay, yeah. Jinesh, can you make a Bipin presenter, please?
Yeah, you have to make him host. That's it.
Yeah, just a minute.
Yeah.
I guess it should have been done.
Yep. Okay, Karthik, can you confirm if my screen is visible?
Yes, Bipin.
Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick update on the critical SAP security notes which was released. So since we did not have any sessions over January and February, I have covered from January till March. So in total, we had 5 very high priority security nodes released through SAP security patch days. And when I say very high, it means like CVS greater than 8.9. And as I always mention, we always advise the customers to apply these corrections as early as possible to make sure your landscape is secure and to avoid any potential exploits. So I will just go through each one in detail, try to collate all the information which is relevant related to these nodes. So on January, we had 2. Out of that, first one we had a code injection vulnerability which was solved in SAP Business Warehouse and SAP BW for HANA. So yeah, here as I mentioned, it's a very high priority node, and the impact is complete compromise of all three vectors: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The CVS score is of 9.9, and unfortunately, there is no workaround available, and the only option is to update your systems. Also, I have also linked the FAQ document for further reference. Right. So moving on, we had another security node, very high priority, which was released on January itself. Again, this is affecting SAP Business Warehouse, the database interface part of it, more specifically. And this security node is covering two vulnerabilities. One is of very high with a score of 9.9. And the other one is a medium priority issue, which is of the very high is a SQL injection, and the other one, medium priority, is a missing authorization check. There is a workaround which is available. So I have linked the FAQ document below. So the workaround is kind of mentioned in the FAQ document. Then moving on to February, we had one very high priority node. So this was on SAP Commerce. Again, the impact is complete compromise of all three vectors with a CVS score of again 9.9. Yeah, there is also a workaround available for this particular issue, and this is clearly mentioned in the solution section of the note, for the security note, and also I have added the FAQ link for further reference. Then moving on to the MASH patch day, which was last week. I would assume like for the January and February, customers would have already implemented the patches. For March, it's only 1 week. Please make sure if you have not implemented, please implement it on priority. So this particular one is affecting SAP manufacturing integration and diligence, and again, in 9.9 with impacting all the three vectors. Here there is no workaround available, and the only option is to upgrade your systems. And the other one was on SAP NetWeaver Application Server Java. It has a CVS score of 9.6, a missing authorization check. There is a workaround which you can implement. So again, when I say workaround, these are just temporary fixes. Don't take it as a permanent solution. Always implement the solution mentioned in the note as a complete solution. This is just an interim fix which you can use till you go for the permanent fix. So here I have also added the links to the workaround and FAQ. So I'll be sharing these slides with you so that you can use this for your reference. And those are the only very high security nodes, but I just also wanted to update you on a medium priority node which was released today. So normally, as you know, SAP releases all the security nodes on patch days, which happens on the second Tuesday. So we have gone for an out-of-band release today for one medium priority issue, because the researcher is going to publish the advisory soon, and it's a medium priority, so not that critical, but since there is going to be advisory published, please take that. Like, just wanted to inform you or give a heads up on that. I can probably add that also into the slides, and I will share the information. Okay, so then that's all I have, and in case of any questions, or if you want any more information on any security nodes or on patch days, you can reach out to me on this email address. So yeah, or if you have any questions, you can put across now also. So that's all from my side. Any questions, or otherwise, over to you, Karthik.
Thank you, Vivian. So all good. If there are any questions, we just give 15-20 minutes to see if we have any queries which need to be addressed. Then maybe we will go ahead with the closing notes for the session. Jinesh, by the way, are you adding the links to the chat window now?
I'll share it later.
Okay, okay. Got it. No problem. Okay, so if there are no further questions, first of all, real big thank you to Jinesh as well as to Alex for taking time to explicitly make a video for this session for the participants. So it was a very, very informative session, and the topic is also pretty niche, and hope we get to have see a lot of implementations on this topic going forward. And thanks for that, Jinesh. And to the participants, the community members as well, thank you so much for participating. And we know that the turnaround time for this meeting was pretty less. We apologize for that, and we will make sure that for subsequent sessions we give enough time to make sure that you can plan yourself as well. So until then, we will send out another interesting INDUS security SIG session information for April. That will reach with a good time where you could plan yourself, and look forward to hosting you again for the April session. So until then, goodbye from our end, and we wish you have a wonderful time ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Wish I will end the meeting for all.
No, can you just give me the host?
Okay.